The Journey West and the Great Expansion of the United States of America as told by the bald eagle, rattlesnake, fox, and dove. For ages 12 to 15, copyright 2026 by C.R. Peterson, all rights reserved. Chapter and Video 4. Disease and Intertribal War. The sky was gray. Cold rain dripped from the pine branches. The fire burned low beneath a rocky ledge where the 4 animals had gathered to escape the storm. No one spoke for a long time.
Finally, Dove broke the silence. This may be the saddest chapter yet.
Snake's rattles buzzed softly, and one of the most important.
Fox stared into the flames. People often want simple stories.
But history is rarely simple, Eagle said quietly.
Thunder rolled across the distant plains.
Fox lowered her voice. When many people think about the conquest of North America, they imagine guns, cannons, soldiers, and battles.
Snake nodded slowly. Those mattered.
Horses mattered, Dove added.
Steel weapons, Fox said.
Military organization, Eagle continued. But another force killed far more people.
The others fell silent.
At last Dove whispered, disease.
The rain fell harder outside.
Eagle's voice deepened. When Europeans arrived in the Americas, they brought diseases that native peoples had never faced before.
Smallpox, Snake said grimly.
Measles, Dove added.
Influenza, Fox continued.
Typhus, cholera, and others, Eagle finished.
Fox looked toward the darkness. In some places, entire villages vanished.
Dove lowered her head sadly. Sometimes before Europeans even arrived there in person.
Snake's voice grew quieter. Disease often traveled faster than explorers.
Fox looked puzzled. How could that happen if Europeans had never reached those villages?
Eagle answered quietly. Because native nations were connected by vast trade networks, long before Europeans arrived. Goods, ideas, news, and people traveled across thousands of miles. Traders moved from village to village. Captives taken during wars were sometimes carried too. Distant nations, diseases traveled with them.
Dove nodded sadly. A village might never see a European, yet sickness could still arrive through trading partners hundreds of miles away.
Fox frowned. So the same trade routes that helped people exchange food, tools, shells, copper, obsidian, and ideas also carried invisible disease.
Yes, Eagle answered. Trade brought many blessings, but epidemics could move along those same networks with devastating speed.
The fire snapped sharply.
Eagle continued. Historians believe millions upon millions of people across the Americas died from epidemic disease after contact with Europe.
Fox stared silently into the flames. The scale is difficult to imagine.
Dove lowered her head. In many regions, historians estimate that populations fell by 50 to 90%. Some communities may have lost as many as 95% of their people.
Snake hissed softly. Entire villages disappeared.
And in some places, Eagle added gravely, entire cultural groups vanished before Europeans ever reached them in large numbers.
Dove's voice became almost a whisper. It was one of the greatest demographic catastrophes in human history.
Snake hissed softly. And once villages weakened, famine often followed.
Along with fear and social collapse, Eagle added.
Fox looked thoughtful. People sometimes ask, why were Europeans eventually able to conquer so much territory?
Snake answered immediately, because disease had already shattered much of the continent.
Dove sighed softly. That was not the only reason.
No, Eagle agreed, but it was one of the greatest.
The wind howled outside the shelter.
After a long silence, Fox asked quietly, was it always accidental?
The others became still.
Snake answered first. At first, mostly yes.
Eagle nodded carefully. Most early epidemics spread without anyone fully understanding how disease worked.
People did not yet understand bacteria or viruses, Dove explained.
Fox narrowed her eyes. But eventually, some people realized disease could become a weapon.
Snake's rattles buzzed grimly. Yes.
The fire flickered.
Eagle's voice grew solemn. There are documented examples of infected blankets being discussed or used during conflicts with native peoples.
Dove looked saddened, especially during periods of war and fear.
Fox's tail twitched angrily, so people took something already horrifying and used it deliberately.
Snake nodded slowly. And this was not the first time in history.
Eagle spread his great wings slightly. Centuries earlier, during wars in Europe and Asia, armies sometimes used disease against enemies.
The Mongols are often mentioned, Dove added carefully.
During sieges, Snake said quietly.
Fox looked toward Eagle. The siege connected to the spread of the Black Death?
Eagle nodded. Some historians believe Mongol forces may have thrown plague-infected bodies into a besieged city during the 1300s.
Though historians still debate exactly how much this affected the spread of the plague, Dove added carefully.
Snake hissed softly. But disease and war have long traveled together.
Fox lowered her ears. And not just against native peoples.
No, Eagle answered firmly. Throughout history, human beings have sometimes used sickness, poisoned water, starvation, and contamination against enemies.
Dove's voice became quieter. Fear can make people do terrible things.
Rain hammered against the rocks outside.
After a long silence, Snake spoke again. But disease alone does not explain everything.
Eagle looked toward the distant plains. Long before Europeans arrived, native nations fought wars with one another.
Snake lifted proudly. Some wars lasted generations.
Or centuries, Dove added sadly. Fox narrowed her eyes.
People often avoid talking about that. Snake snorted.
Yes, some prefer stories where one side is entirely peaceful and the other entirely evil. Eagle shook his head slowly. Human history is more complicated.
Dove spoke carefully. There were alliances, trade, marriages, and cooperation between tribes.
And also raids, revenge killings, slavery, territorial wars, and bitter hatred. Snake finished.
Fox stared into the fire. Some enemies hated each other so deeply they would ally with outsiders against old rivals.
The others nodded silently.
Eagle's voice grew heavier. When Europeans and later Americans moved westward, they often stepped into existing conflicts.
Sometimes they exploited them deliberately, Fox added.
Snake rattled softly. Promises, alliances, trade agreements, weapons.
And sometimes tribes allied with Europeans or Americans because they feared or hated rival tribes even more, Dove said sadly.
Fox looked thoughtful. So conquest was not simply outsiders defeating a united continent?
No, Eagle answered firmly. The continent was never united.
Snake's eyes gleamed darkly, and disease made old rivalries even more dangerous.
Dove nodded sadly. When populations collapsed, survivors competed harder for land, food, hunting grounds, and power.
Fox added quietly, and fear grew.
The fire crackled low.
Eagle continued. Horses and guns also transformed warfare.
Snake lifted proudly, especially on the plains.
Some nations became more powerful. Eagle explained, others weaker.
Fox flicked her tail. And once guns entered existing conflicts...
Odds wars often became deadlier, Dove finished quietly.
Thunder rolled again.
After a silence, Fox asked, So are you saying disease and internal conflict opened the door for expansion from the new United States?
Eagle nodded slowly. Yes.
Snake's rattles buzzed softly. The United States would eventually possess growing industry, armies, settlers, roads, ships, and technology.
But many native nations had already been weakened terribly by disease and generations of conflict, Dove added.
Fox thought for a moment. So it was not one cause.
No, Eagle replied. History almost never has only one cause. Disease, warfare, technology, geography, alliances, leadership, economics, and human choices all shaped what happened.
Snake nodded. Take away any one of those and history might have unfolded differently.
Dove looked thoughtfully into the fading rain. That is why historians study many causes instead of looking for one simple answer.
Fox smiled faintly. And why simple explanations are often incomplete.
Snake gave a small grin, even if they make shorter stories.
The rain continued to soften.
Fox looked back toward Eagle. And some groups hoped Americans might help them against old enemies.
Snake gave a grim smile. Sometimes they were right.
And sometimes terribly wrong, Dove whispered.
The rain slowly began to fade.
Eagle looked toward the clouds breaking in the distance. This chapter is painful.
Yes, Dove said softly, but ignoring painful history does not change history or truth.
Fox nodded slowly. History should not become propaganda for anyone.
Snake smiled faintly. Now that sounds like something Eagle would say.
Eagle ignored him. The purpose of history is not to create simple heroes and villains.
It is to understand people, both in the past and in the present, Dove said gently.
Fox stared toward the distant horizon. And people, she said quietly, are capable of both greatness and cruelty.
Snake's rattles buzzed once, and for some at the same time.
The clouds slowly parted. A shaft of sunlight broke through the storm and spread across the wet prairie.
Eagle watched it quietly. History often tells us what happened.
Dove smiled gently. But wisdom comes from asking why it happened.
Fox looked toward the brightening western sky, and from learning enough that we do not repeat the same mistakes.
Snake nodded once. The past cannot be changed.
But the future still can, Eagle said.
Far beyond the wet plains, the western horizon waited, and the continent was changing forever. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your family and friends. If you'd like to be notified when new chapters are released, click the notification bell. Be sure to look in the description below for the reflection questions and questions for further research. They're designed to encourage discussion, critical thinking, and a deeper understanding of history. Thank you again for watching. Until next time, never stop asking questions and never stop learning.